So this city bike Karen incident is getting a lot of attention and a lot of misinformation is out there, but I'm gonna go ahead and clear it up because I have all the receipts necessary so we can say certifiably that that woman was absolutely in the wrong. So it starts off with a recording between a young black man and her and several of his friends in which they're arguing, and she's screaming for help, saying, help me, please. And she sounds very, very distraught. She's sitting on the bike while the young man has his hands on the handlebars and he's saying, this is my bike. The woman is saying, get off me, repeatedly. There's a person who passes by, he sees her as well, and they're arguing over a bike, which is a city bike, which you can rent. You can rent these bikes and you can actually check the bike out into your name on your account, and then afterwards, then you end up having the bike. You have to turn it in after a certain amount of time. If you don't turn it in within a certain amount of time, then they charge you per minute, and if you just never turn the bike back in, then they charge you $1,200 for the bike. Now, the video lasts about 1 minute and 45 seconds. When the video was initially released, there was a bunch of social media outcry over the incident, and people were calling her a Karen, and eventually she was doxxed because once a second man started walking up in scrubs, she then begins sobbing or appearing to sob. But of course, no tears are coming out of her eyes. And she starts really like hamming it up, almost trying to act as if she was really, really distraught. Fortunately, the young black men who were recording the video immediately said, hey, why are you fake crying? There's not a tear coming down, miss. Because they recognized she was weaponizing her tears in order to get more attention or to gain favor in the situation. Of course, it works on the on the old white man, as he eventually says to her, hey, why don't you guys just check the bike in? So let me give you the facts of this incident, okay? First off, the bike during the recording was checked out. We know that the bike was checked out during the recording as seen by the purple lights on the bike. City Bike has explanation for how checking in and out a bike works, as seen here. It says, you can return your classic bike or e-bike to any station with an open dock. You don't have to bring it back to the station where you picked it up. Enjoy your ending your ride. Tap on the station to see the exact number of bikes and docks available. Line up the triangle located at the front of the bike with the dock and insert your bike gently but firmly. Don't slam it. It then says, wait until the light on the dock turns green and make sure it's locked. If you aren't sure, pull the bike by the handlebars to confirm it's properly locked. Please always make sure your bike is docked at a city bike station when your ride is over. Never leave it unattended. Now, that green light is when the bike is locked, when it's docked at the station and when it's available for usage. The purple light means that the bike is already in usage. You can see this in the video. There's another person who has a bike that is clearly not at the station. You can see it right here. So that means that that bike, since we saw the purple light repeatedly, was already in usage. The video lasted longer than 1 minute. Her bike, her receipt that her lawyer eventually provides, only shows that she had access to the bike for 1 minute. 1 minute. That's shorter than this video, which means that at the time of the video, the bike was clearly checked out to someone and it wasn't her. Also, what can be seen at the end of the video is at the very end, you can see him begin backing the bike out. What you cannot see during this video is him paying for and checking out the bike, which means that from the onset of the recording of this video, the bike had already been checked out. Clearly, you hear the man say it multiple times. The young man said it multiple times. He said, the bike is on my account, in direct response to his friend asking him the question, did you pull the bike out? Did you pull the bike out? He says, yes, it's on my account. That's what he said. Furthermore, the white man who walked up said, why don't you reset the bike? If the bike was still locked at that station at that point, he wouldn't be telling him to reset it. He said, why don't you reset the bike? So his statement, the fact that the light was purple, the fact that the young man asked him, did you pull the bike out? All three of these things corroborate the story that the bike was checked out. And again, you can see another bike that is checked out that's in the back of the video. It flashes really quickly. You can see the purple light on the bike because that bike was checked out. And again, at the very end of the video, you see that man pulling the bike out and then use it and attempting to use the bike at this point. So That means, again, from the onset of the recording, that the bike was already checked out to somebody, and it wasn't her, because her receipt was only for 1 minute. Furthermore, there's a second receipt where she took a second bike and took that bike all the way home in a ride that lasted 37 minutes. So this bike did indeed belong to this young man. Now, it's crazy how quickly people will jump to conclusions that simply the showing of a receipt immediately means that the bike was hers. It was not hers at the time of the recording, but it's okay. I came up with a simple analogy which I think helps elucidate what exactly happened, so we can stop sitting around here falling for the okie doke. Imagine a local bookstore where books are in high demand. A woman named Karen goes into the library and checks out a book and begins reading it. She gets a receipt for her check out of the book, and she starts reading the book, and she's having a good time reading her book. But after a while, she decides to take a small break, and so she leaves the book where it was, goes to use the restroom, and plans to come back and read it. Around this time, Hassan comes in to the freaking library, and he sees this book unattended and assumes that it's available. So he decides, oh, I want to get this book. He takes it to the front station, checks the book in, and says he'd like to rent it. The librarian, seeing no one uses it, checks the book back in and then checks it out to Hassan. Hassan sits down and starts reading the book. At this point, Karen walks up and says, hey, you're reading my book, that's my book, and shows the receipt saying, hey, this is my book. Hassan says, no, this is not your book, it's checked out on my account, it's my book. While Karen's receipt does show at one point she had the book, she no longer has it at the time, because the library, just like the bike system, recognizes the last person to check out whatever property is the rightful owner of that property. So since we can see, again, that the bike is checked out at the time of the recording of the video, her receipt was no longer valid at that time. She only has 2 receipts. Hassan clearly took the bike and started leaving with it at the end of the video. It was not her bike. White supremacy will always find a way, and people are readily jumping to conclusions, fact-checking, and doing all this information. No, it was her bike. See, so they were all lying. You guys all owe her an apology. No. I'll tell you who owes an apology. Who owes an apology is a woman who insisted the bike was hers when there were other bikes available, despite the fact that the bike was checked in. And you know that she wasn't concerned about the bike just truly being on her account, because as soon as the man suggested take another bike, she said, okay. Tears, the fake sobbing immediately stopped. She immediately gets on that bike and she goes.
Why don't you take this bike? I'm touching me.
I will.
Exactly.
So take it.
Your baby gonna come out with
Wait, how you stop crying? Not a tear came down, miss. Not a tear came down.
She was also cognizant enough to take off her badge during the altercation because she recognized she didn't want to be identified by the recording. She grabbed the young man's phone and just took it as if she had an entitlement to taking his property. Clearly, she knew what she was doing. Immediately, she takes the new bike, no concern for, hey, well then check that bike back in because it's on my account. She knew the bike wasn't on her account, and she was insisting on taking the bike. The young man needed to stand up to make sure that she didn't take that bike, because if she doesn't turn the bike in, then he would owe $1,200. There is a policy with that bike, with that system, that says if the bike isn't turned on, you will be charged for every minute, and after a certain amount, it'll be charged $1,200. I'm not paying that. If it's on my account, I'm taking that bike. Here's the facts. Undeniable proof. Now watch how slow that is to circulate. Now the media quickly picked up the information showing, hey, she had a receipt. That receipt didn't prove anything. I'm curious to hear how people go on to defend her despite the fact that we have proof that the bike was checked out at the time and it clearly wasn't checked out to her. She would have a 3rd receipt if that was the case. 1 receipt for the time when it was checked out for 1 minute, 1 receipt for the time it was checked out during the altercation, and then the 3rd receipt for the bike that she actually took to get home. Notice she doesn't have that. She only has 2. So since that bike was checked out during that time and it was longer than a minute, it wasn't checked out to her.